I was 12 years old when my mother abandoned me in the middle of Yellowstone National Park and drove away. She told me she was going to get firewood and never came back. I waited for hours, alone in the wilderness, until a park ranger found me shivering and terrified beside a dying campfire. My mother showed up 6 hours later, claiming she'd gotten lost, that it had been an accident. But I knew the truth. I'd seen the look on her face before she left. I'd heard the phone call with her new boyfriend. She didn't get lost. She abandoned me on purpose. Years later, when I was 23, I confronted my mother about that day. And she denied everything. She said I was remembering wrong, that I was being dramatic, that she would never intentionally leave me. She rewrote the entire story, turning herself into the victim, the worried mother who'd gotten lost trying to care for her daughter. But what she didn't know was that I had recorded everything. That day in Yellowstone, my cheap digital camera had been on, capturing audio of everything that happened. Every word. Every phone call. Every lie. And when I played that recording years later, with the entire family present, the truth destroyed all of her lies. My name is Jade, and this is the story of how my mother abandoned me in a forest when I was 12, how she lied about it for a decade, and how an 11-year-old audio recording finally exposed who she really was. Let me take you back to July 2013. I was 12 years old, living in Portland, Oregon with my mother, Vanessa. It had been 4 years since my father died in a car accident, and since then, it had been just the two of us. But our relationship wasn't what you'd call normal. My mother was emotionally unstable, narcissistic, and she treated me more like a therapist or a friend than a daughter. I'd learned from a very young age to manage her emotions, to calm her down when she was upset, to validate her constantly. After my father died, it got worse. She leaned on me for everything. Her grief, her loneliness, her need for constant reassurance. I was 8 years old, and I became her emotional support system. By the time I was 12, I was exhausted. That summer, my mother announced we were going on a camping trip to Yellowstone. "Just us girls," she said excitedly. "We need to reconnect. We need quality time together." I was cautiously optimistic. Maybe this trip would be good for us. Maybe we could actually have fun together, like a normal mother and daughter. I packed my things, including my digital camera, a cheap little thing my father had given me before he died. I loved that camera. I documented everything with it, taking photos and videos, preserving memories. The drive to Yellowstone took 2 days. My mother was in a good mood at first, singing along to the radio, talking about all the things we'd do. But I noticed she was on her phone a lot, texting someone, smiling at her screen. "Who are you texting?" I asked. "Just a friend," she said vaguely. I didn't push it. I'd learned not to ask too many questions. When we arrived at Yellowstone and set up our campsite, everything seemed fine. We hiked, we cooked over the campfire, we looked at the stars. I took dozens of photos and videos, documenting our trip. For the first time in months, I felt like maybe things were okay between us. But on the second night, everything changed. I was in the tent, pretending to read by flashlight, when I heard my mother's phone ring. She stepped outside to take the call, but the tent walls were thin. I could hear everything. "Hey, Derek," she said, her voice soft and flirty. Derek. I'd heard that name before. He was someone she'd been seeing, a guy she'd met at work. She'd mentioned him a few times but had been weirdly secretive about it. "I miss you too," she said. "I know, I wish I was there." "Wait, you're where?" "Jackson Hole. That's only like 2 hours from here." My stomach dropped. I knew what was coming. "I can't just leave," my mother said. "I'm here with Jade." "I know, but she's 12. I can't leave her alone at a campsite." There was a long pause. Then my mother laughed, nervous and uncertain. I guess I could figure something out. She's pretty independent." "Yeah, okay. Let me think about it. I'll call you back." She came back into the tent, and I quickly pretended to be asleep. But my heart was racing. She wouldn't actually leave me here, would she? She wouldn't abandon me in the middle of a national park just to see some guy. But deep down, I knew she would. Because my mother always put herself first. The next morning, she was distracted and irritable. She kept checking her phone, typing messages, looking anxious. "Let's just stay at the campsite today," she said. "I'm tired. We don't need to hike." I agreed, sensing her mood. I'd learned to read her emotions, to adjust my behavior to keep her calm. Around noon, she stood up suddenly. "I'm going to get more firewood," she announced. "Stay here. Don't leave the campsite. I'll be back in an hour." "Okay," I said, not thinking anything of it. She grabbed the car keys, which seemed odd. Why would she need the car to get firewood? But I didn't question it. I'd learned not to question her. After she left, I pulled out my camera and started recording a video diary, something I did often. I was talking to the camera, describing our trip, when I heard the car engine start. I ran out of the tent just in time to see our car pulling away. "Mom!" I shouted. "You forgot to say goodbye." But the car didn't stop. It accelerated down the dirt road and disappeared around a bend. I stood there, confused. Maybe she was in a hurry. Maybe she'd be back soon. I went back to the tent. My camera was still recording, sitting on a log where I'd left it. I didn't turn it off. 1 hour passed. Then 2. Then 3. The sun started to set, and my mother still hadn't returned. I was alone in Yellowstone National Park, with no cell phone, no way to contact anyone, no idea when or if my mother was coming back. Panic started to set in. I knew there were bears in Yellowstone. I knew the forest was dangerous at night. I was 12 years old and completely alone. I tried to stay calm. I kept the campfire going, feeding it sticks and logs, trying to keep it alive as protection. I sat beside it as darkness fell, trembling with cold and fear. Where was she? What had happened? Had she gotten lost? Or had she left me on purpose? I didn't want to believe that. I couldn't believe that. But the phone call from the night before kept echoing in my mind. Hours passed. It was fully dark now, and I was crying, terrified, alone. And then I saw a flashlight coming down the trail. "Hello," a man's voice called. "Is someone there?" "I'm here," I shouted, my voice breaking. "I'm here." A park ranger appeared, a middle-aged man with a kind face and a concerned expression. "Hey there," he said gently. "What are you doing out here alone? Where are your parents?" "My mom went to get firewood," I said, tears streaming down my face. "But she hasn't come back. She left at noon." The ranger's expression changed to alarm. "It's 8 o'clock at night. You've been alone for 8 hours. I nodded, sobbing now. "She took the car. I don't know where she went. I don't know what happened." The ranger, whose name tag read Mitchell, immediately got on his radio and reported the situation. He sat down beside me, gave me water and a granola bar, and tried to calm me down. "It's going to be okay," he said. "We're going to find your mom. Can you tell me her name?" "Vanessa," I said. "Vanessa Chen. We're from Portland." Ranger Mitchell radioed in the information, and I heard him describe the situation. A 12-year-old girl abandoned at a campsite for 8 hours, mother missing, possibly lost in the park. Other rangers began a search, worried that my mother might be injured or in danger. But I had a terrible feeling in my stomach. She wasn't lost. She'd left on purpose. At 10 o'clock at night, I heard a car engine. Our car pulled into the campsite, and my mother jumped out, looking disheveled and panicked. "Jade! Oh my God, baby, are you okay?" She ran toward me, but Ranger Mitchell stepped between us. "Ma'am, where have you been? You left your 12-year-old daughter alone for 10 hours. "I got lost," my mother said, tears streaming down her face. "I went to get firewood and I got lost in the forest. I didn't have cell service. I tried to find my way back, but I kept getting more lost. It was horrible. I was so scared. She pushed past the ranger and grabbed me, hugging me tight. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. It was an accident. I never meant to leave you alone. I wanted to believe her. I desperately wanted to believe that it had been an accident, that she hadn't abandoned me on purpose. But something didn't add up. Ranger Mitchell was clearly skeptical too. Ma'am, your daughter said you took the car. If you were getting firewood on foot, why did you drive away? My mother hesitated for just a fraction of a second. I thought I saw a better spot for firewood down the road. So I drove there. And then when I got out of the car, I got disoriented and lost. It was a weak explanation, and I could see Ranger Mitchell didn't believe it. But my mother was crying, hugging me, playing the role of the worried mother perfectly. Can I take my daughter now? She asked. She must be exhausted and scared. We need to rest. Ranger Mitchell looked at me. Are you okay? Do you feel safe? I'd been trained my entire life to protect my mother's feelings, to not cause problems, to keep the peace. So I nodded. I'm okay. It was just an accident. But I didn't believe it. And that night, lying in the tent next to the mother who'd abandoned me, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the phone call. About Derek in Jackson Hole. About the car driving away. And then I remembered. My camera had been on. It had been recording when she left. It had been recording audio of everything. The next morning, while my mother slept, I checked the camera. And there it was. Clear audio of my mother on the phone before she left. Yes, Derek, I'm coming. I'll leave her at the campsite. She'll be fine for a few hours. Nobody will know. I know, but I really want to see you. Okay, I'm leaving now. See you in 2 hours. Proof. Clear, undeniable proof that the abandonment had been intentional. My hands were shaking as I listened to it. She'd lied. She'd lied to the ranger, she'd lied to me, and she'd driven 2 hours to Jackson Hole to see her boyfriend while leaving me alone in the wilderness. I saved the audio file, transferred it to multiple locations on the camera's memory card, and hid the camera in my backpack. I was 12 years old and I didn't know what to do with this information. But some instinct told me to keep it. To preserve it. That someday I might need it. We left Yellowstone the next day. My mother acted like nothing had happened, like everything was fine. She was cheerful and chatty on the drive home, talking about what a great trip it had been. I said nothing. When we got home, I transferred the audio file to my computer and saved it in multiple places. I labeled it with the date and location. And then I tried to move on with my life. But I couldn't forget. I couldn't forget the terror of being alone in the dark forest. I couldn't forget the betrayal of watching her car drive away. I couldn't forget the lies she'd told. Over the next few years, I started to notice a pattern. My mother lied constantly. She rewrote history to make herself look better, to avoid responsibility, to play the victim. And whenever I tried to bring up something she'd done, she'd deny it, tell me I was remembering wrong, accuse me of being dramatic or oversensitive. It's called gaslighting, though I didn't know that word yet. She made me question my own memories, my own perceptions, my own reality. That's not what happened, she'd say. You're being dramatic. You're too sensitive. You're remembering it wrong. And slowly, I started to doubt myself. Maybe I was remembering things wrong. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I was the problem. But I had that audio file. I had proof that at least once, I was right and she was lying. And that gave me something to hold on to. When I was 16, I brought up Yellowstone for the first time since it happened. Mom, do you remember when you left me alone at the campsite for 10 hours? She looked at me blankly. What are you talking about? In Yellowstone. When I was 12. You drove away and didn't come back for 10 hours. Oh, that, she said dismissively. I got lost, Jade. It was an accident. Why are you bringing up ancient history? It didn't feel like an accident, I said carefully. It felt like you left me on purpose. Her face changed, anger flashing in her eyes. How dare you? I would never abandon you on purpose. I'm your mother. I got lost in the forest trying to get firewood for us. I was terrified. And you're accusing me of abandoning you? That's incredibly hurtful. She started crying, playing the victim, making me feel guilty for even bringing it up. I'm sorry, I said automatically, falling back into old patterns. I didn't mean it like that. But I did mean it. And I knew the truth. I just didn't have the courage yet to expose it. I graduated high school and went to college, studying psychology. I was fascinated by family dynamics, by narcissism, by gaslighting and emotional abuse. I was trying to understand my own mother, trying to make sense of my childhood. In my classes, I learned the terminology for what I'd experienced. Emotional neglect, parentification, gaslighting, narcissistic abuse. It was like someone had written a textbook about my life. I went to therapy and started to unpack everything. My therapist helped me understand that my memories were valid, that I wasn't crazy or oversensitive, that my mother's behavior had been abusive. Do you have any evidence of the gaslighting? My therapist asked during one session. Any proof that your memories are accurate? Yes, I said. I have an audio recording from when I was 12, of my mother planning to abandon me. My therapist's eyes widened. You've had this recording for years and never used it? I didn't know what to do with it, I admitted. I was just a kid. And then as I got older, I started doubting myself. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I misunderstood. Would you feel comfortable playing it for me? She asked gently. I pulled out my phone, where I'd transferred the file years ago, and played it. My mother's voice, clear and unmistakable. Yes, Derek, I'm coming. I'll leave her at the campsite. She'll be fine for a few hours. My therapist's face was serious. Jade, this is evidence of child endangerment and abandonment. Your mother intentionally left you alone in a dangerous situation. And then she lied about it. I know, I said quietly. But what am I supposed to do with that information now? It was 11 years ago. That's up to you, she said. But I think you need to decide, are you going to keep protecting her, or are you going to protect yourself? That question haunted me for months. Was I going to keep protecting my mother, keep accepting her lies and gaslighting, or was I going to stand up for myself and expose the truth? The decision was made for me when I was 23. I'd graduated college and was working as a therapist myself, specializing in childhood trauma. I'd built a life separate from my mother, seeing her only occasionally, keeping her at arm's length emotionally. But she still tried to control the narrative of our relationship. She told everyone what a close, loving relationship we had. She posted on social media about being a devoted single mother who'd sacrificed everything for her daughter. She rewrote our entire history, erasing the neglect and abuse, creating a fantasy version of our relationship. And I let her, because confronting her seemed too exhausting, too painful. But then came Thanksgiving 2024. My mother hosted a big family dinner with her siblings, my cousins, her boyfriend of the moment. I was expected to attend and play the role of the loving, grateful daughter. During dinner, my aunt mentioned something about a camping trip she was planning with her kids. I'm always so nervous taking them camping, she said. What if something happens? What if one of them gets hurt or lost? Oh, I know exactly what you mean, my mother said, jumping in. I remember when Jade and I went camping in Yellowstone when she was 12. I got lost in the forest for hours trying to find firewood. It was the most terrifying experience of my life. I was so worried about getting back to Jade. A mother's worst nightmare. I felt my blood pressure rising. She was doing it again. Rewriting history, making herself the victim, erasing what she'd actually done. That's not what happened, I said quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. What do you mean? My aunt asked. That's not what happened, I repeated louder now. She didn't get lost trying to find firewood. She drove away and left me alone at the campsite for 10 hours. My mother's face went pale, then red. Jade, that's not true. I got lost. You know that. No, you didn't, I said, my voice shaking but firm. You drove to Jackson Hole to meet your boyfriend Derek. You left me alone on purpose. And when you came back, you lied about it. I did no such thing, my mother said, her voice rising. I can't believe you're saying this. I got lost in the forest. It was traumatic for me. And now you're rewriting history to make me look bad. I'm not rewriting anything, I said. I'm telling the truth. You're remembering it wrong, she insisted. You were 12. You were scared and confused. But I never abandoned you. I would never do that. She looked around the table at the family, tears in her eyes. I don't know why she's saying these things. I've always been there for her. I've sacrificed everything for her. And this is how she repays me. With lies and accusations. I saw my family members looking at me with confusion and concern. They believed her. Of course they believed her. She was convincing, crying, playing the victim perfectly. And I was the ungrateful daughter making wild accusations. I pulled out my phone. I'm not lying, I said. And I can prove it. My mother's face changed. What are you talking about? I have a recording, I said. From that day. My camera was on. It recorded everything. The room went silent. My mother's face went from red to white. You're bluffing, she said, but her voice was uncertain. No, I'm not, I said. I found the audio file on my phone, the one I'd kept for 11 years, and I pressed play. My mother's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable. Yes, Derek, I'm coming. I'll leave her at the campsite. She'll be fine for a few hours. Nobody will know. I know, but I really want to see you. Okay, I'm leaving now. See you in 2 hours. The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone stared at my mother. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. That's out of context, she finally said. You don't understand. What context makes it okay to abandon your 12-year-old daughter in the wilderness? I asked. What context makes that acceptable? I was only gone for a few hours. 10 hours, I interrupted. You were gone for 10 hours. I was alone in the dark. A park ranger found me. I was terrified. My aunt was staring at my mother in horror. Vanessa, you left her alone? On purpose. It wasn't like that, my mother said desperately. I was coming back. I just wanted to see Derek for a little while. I didn't think it would take that long. You drove 2 hours away, I said. You left me alone in a national park with bears and no way to contact anyone. And then you lied about it. You told the ranger you got lost. You've been telling everyone for 11 years that you got lost. But you didn't. You abandoned me on purpose. My mother started crying, real tears now, not the manipulative ones she usually used. I made a mistake, she sobbed. I was lonely. I wanted to see Derek. I thought you'd be fine for a few hours. I didn't mean for it to take so long. You left me alone in the wilderness for a man you'd known for a few weeks, I said, and my voice was cold now. And then you lied about it for 11 years. You gaslit me, made me question my own memories, told me I was being dramatic and oversensitive. But I wasn't. I was right. And you were lying. I looked around the table at my family. She does this constantly. She lies, she rewrites history, she makes herself the victim. And I've spent my entire life questioning myself, wondering if I was crazy, if I was remembering things wrong. But I'm not crazy. I have proof. I stood up. I'm done protecting you, I said to my mother. I'm done pretending we have a good relationship. I'm done letting you lie about what happened. You abandoned me. You endangered me. You traumatized me. And then you spent 11 years denying it. I grabbed my coat and walked out, leaving my mother crying at the table, her carefully constructed image shattered, the truth finally exposed. The aftermath was intense. My mother called me dozens of times, leaving voicemails that ranged from apologetic to angry to manipulative. "I'm so sorry, I made a mistake. Please forgive me. How could you humiliate me like that in front of the family? You're destroying our relationship over something that happened years ago." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I blocked her number and focused on my own healing. My family was divided. Some believed my mother's excuses, thought I was being too harsh, thought I should forgive and move on. But others, including my aunt, reached out to support me. "I always knew something was off about Vanessa," my aunt told me. "But I never knew it was this bad. I'm so sorry you went through that." I continued therapy, processing the trauma and the years of gaslighting. And I started writing about my experience, anonymously at first, on forums for survivors of narcissistic abuse. My story resonated with thousands of people who'd experienced similar gaslighting, who'd been made to doubt their own memories and perceptions. When I was 25, I wrote a book about my experience. It was called The Recording: How One Audio File Exposed Years of Gaslighting. I used my real name and my mother's real name. I included the audio recording. I told the entire story, from the abandonment in Yellowstone to the years of lies to the moment I finally played the recording at Thanksgiving dinner. The book became a bestseller. It struck a chord with people who'd experienced gaslighting and narcissistic abuse, who'd been told they were remembering things wrong, who'd been made to doubt their own reality. I did interviews, podcasts, speaking engagements. I shared my story over and over, and each time, people reached out to tell me their own stories of being gaslit by parents, partners, family members. The audio recording became famous. It was played on podcasts and news segments as an example of clear evidence of gaslighting and child endangerment. People were shocked that a mother could so casually plan to abandon her child, and then lie about it for years. My mother was furious. She called me from a number I hadn't blocked, screaming about how I'd ruined her life, destroyed her reputation, turned the family against her. "You're vindictive," she yelled. "You're cruel. You held on to that recording for years just waiting for a chance to destroy me." "No," I said calmly. "I held on to that recording because some part of me knew I'd need proof. I knew you'd deny it. I knew you'd gaslight me. And I was right. I made one mistake," she shouted. "One mistake when you were 12, and you're punishing me for it forever." "It wasn't one mistake," I said. "It was the abandonment, and then the lies, and then the gaslighting for 11 years. It was making me doubt my own memories and perceptions. It was rewriting history to make yourself look good. That's not one mistake. That's a pattern of abuse." "I'm your mother," she said, and her voice broke. "Doesn't that mean anything to you?" "It means I deserved better," I said. "It means you should have protected me, not endangered me. It means you should have told the truth, not lied for years. Being my mother doesn't give you the right to abuse me and then deny it." I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to her. My book led to other opportunities. I became a sought-after speaker on narcissistic abuse and gaslighting. I specialized in helping adult children of narcissistic parents heal from years of manipulation and emotional abuse. I helped people understand that their memories were valid, that they weren't crazy, that the gaslighting they'd experienced was real and damaging. And I always emphasized the importance of documentation. "If you can, document everything," I told audiences. "Keep texts, emails, recordings. Not because you're planning to use them against someone, but because when you're being gaslit, you need something concrete to hold on to. You need proof that your memories are real." The audio recording from Yellowstone became a symbol of that. It was proof that I wasn't crazy, that my memories were accurate, that my mother had lied. And it gave me the validation I'd needed for years. People often asked me if I regretted exposing my mother so publicly. "Don't you feel guilty?" they'd ask. "She's still your mother." "No," I'd say. I don't feel guilty. She made the choice to abandon me. She made the choice to lie about it for years. She made the choice to gaslight me and make me doubt myself. I'm just telling the truth. If the truth makes her look bad, that's because her actions were bad. Some people thought I was too harsh, too unforgiving. But most people, especially those who'd experienced similar abuse, understood. They understood that sometimes, the only way to heal is to expose the truth. To stop protecting the abuser and start protecting yourself. Today, I'm 28 years old. I have a thriving therapy practice specializing in narcissistic abuse and gaslighting. I've written 2 more books about family trauma and healing. I have a life I'm proud of, built on truth and authenticity. I haven't spoken to my mother in 5 years. She's tried to reach out occasionally, usually through other family members, but I've maintained my boundaries. I don't owe her forgiveness. I don't owe her a relationship. I owe myself peace and healing. The audio recording that I kept for 11 years changed my life. It validated my memories. It exposed the lies. It gave me the courage to stand up for myself and tell the truth. And it helped thousands of other people understand that they weren't crazy, that their memories were real, that gaslighting is a real and damaging form of abuse. That 12-year-old girl, alone and terrified in Yellowstone, had the instinct to preserve evidence. She didn't know why at the time. She just knew somehow that she'd need it someday. And she was right. That recording became my proof, my validation, my weapon against years of lies. It became the thing that finally set me free. My mother drove off and left me in Yellowstone when I was 12. She abandoned me on purpose, lied about it, and gaslit me for years. But I had proof. I had a recording. And when I finally played it, the truth destroyed all of her lies. This is Jade Morrison, signing off. To the mother who abandoned me and then denied it, your lies couldn't survive the truth. To everyone who's been gaslit, who's been made to doubt their own memories, you're not crazy. Your memories are real. Trust yourself. And if you can, document everything. Because someday you might need proof. Someday you might need to play that recording and expose the truth. And when you do, it will set you free. To that 12-year-old girl with the cheap digital camera, thank you for recording. Thank you for preserving the evidence. Thank you for trusting your instincts. You saved us. You gave us the proof we needed to finally stop doubting ourselves and start believing in our own truth. The recording was our weapon. The truth was our shield. And together they set us free. If you're being gaslit, if you're being made to doubt your own reality, please know, you're not alone. Your memories are valid. Your perceptions are real. And you deserve to be believed. Document everything. Trust yourself. Tell the truth. And don't let anyone rewrite your history. Because your story matters. Your truth matters. And no one has the right to take that away from you. That's what I learned at 12 years old in Yellowstone. That's what the recording taught me. That's what I'm still learning today. Truth is powerful. Evidence is protection. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is press play and let the truth speak for itself. My mother denied abandoning me for 11 years. But she couldn't deny the recording. She couldn't argue with her own voice, her own words, her own admission of guilt. The truth destroyed her lies. And it set me free. That's the power of evidence. That's the power of truth. That's the power of refusing to let someone rewrite your reality. I was 12 years old when my mother abandoned me in Yellowstone. I'm 28 years old now, and I'm finally free. Free from her lies. Free from her gaslighting. Free from doubting myself. And it all started with a recording. A simple audio file that captured the truth and preserved it for the moment when I'd finally be ready to use it. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for believing me. And if you're going through something similar, please know, I believe you too. Your truth matters. Your story matters. And you deserve to be heard. The impact of my book and my story went far beyond what I ever expected. Within months of publication, the recording had sold over 1 million copies. It was translated into 30 languages. It sparked a global conversation about gaslighting, narcissistic abuse, and the importance of believing survivors. I received thousands of messages from people sharing their own stories. Adult children of narcissistic parents who'd been gaslit for years. Survivors of abusive relationships who'd been made to doubt their own memories. People who'd kept evidence for years, not knowing what to do with it, finally finding the courage to use it. One message in particular stayed with me. It was from a woman named Sarah, who was 45 years old. "I've been in therapy for 20 years trying to understand my relationship with my mother," she wrote. "My therapist kept telling me that my memories of neglect and abuse were valid, but I couldn't believe it. My mother denied everything, told me I was remembering wrong, said I was being dramatic. I thought I was crazy. But then I read your book. And I remembered, I kept a diary when I was a teenager. I wrote down everything that happened. I still have those diaries in a box in my attic. Last week, I finally opened them and read them. And everything I remembered was there, documented in my own handwriting. My mother did neglect me. She did say cruel things. She did abandon me emotionally. I wasn't crazy. I was right. Your book gave me the courage to trust my own documentation, my own evidence. And it's changed my life. Thank you." I cried reading that message. Because that's exactly what I'd hoped my story would do. Help people trust themselves, validate their own experiences, understand that they weren't crazy. The audio recording became a cultural touchstone. It was referenced in articles about gaslighting, played in psychology classes as an example of narcissistic behavior, discussed in therapy sessions around the world. Some people criticized me for keeping the recording for so long without using it. "Why didn't you report your mother to Child Protective Services when you were 12? They asked. "Why did you wait 11 years? I addressed this in interviews. "I was 12 years old," I'd explain. "I was scared, confused, and completely dependent on my mother. I didn't know what to do with the evidence. I just knew I needed to keep it. And as I got older, she gaslit me so effectively that I started doubting my own memories. I thought maybe I was wrong, maybe I was being dramatic." It took years of therapy and personal growth before I was ready to confront her with the truth. Most people understood. Those who'd experienced gaslighting knew how insidious it was, how it made you doubt everything, even clear evidence. But some people remained critical, saying I should have reported her immediately, that I was partially responsible for not taking action sooner. Those criticisms hurt, but I learned to let them go. I'd done the best I could with the resources and understanding I had at each age. I couldn't change the past. I could only move forward. My work as a therapist deepened. I specialized in helping clients who'd been gaslit, who doubted their own memories and perceptions. I taught them techniques for grounding themselves in reality, for trusting their own experiences, for recognizing gaslighting when it happened. And I always encouraged documentation. Keep a journal, I'd tell clients. Save texts and emails. If it's legal in your state, record conversations. Not because you're planning to use them against someone, but because when you're being gaslit, you need something concrete to anchor you to reality. Many of my clients found this advice life-changing. They'd come back to sessions with journals or saved messages, reading them aloud, realizing that their memories were accurate, that they weren't crazy. "I wrote this down the day it happened," one client said, reading from her journal. "And it's exactly how I remember it. But my husband has been telling me for months that it didn't happen that way, that I'm misremembering. But here it is, in my own handwriting from that day. I'm not crazy." "No," I'd say. "You're not crazy. You're being gaslit. And now you have proof." I also started a non-profit organization called Trust Your Truth, dedicated to helping survivors of gaslighting and narcissistic abuse. We provided free therapy, support groups, and resources for people trying to heal from years of manipulation. We taught people about gaslighting how to recognize it, how to protect themselves from it. And we created a secure digital platform where people could document their experiences, storing evidence in a safe, encrypted space that couldn't be accessed or deleted by abusers. The organization grew rapidly. Within 2 years, we had chapters in 15 states and were helping thousands of people. We received funding from foundations and donations from people who'd read my book and wanted to support the cause. Every success story from the organization felt like honoring that 12-year-old girl in Yellowstone. Every person we helped felt like justice for what I'd been through. 5 years after publishing my book, I was invited to speak at a major psychology conference. The topic was the long-term effects of parental gaslighting. I stood on stage in front of hundreds of therapists, psychologists, and researchers, and I told my story again. But this time, I focused on the healing. Gaslighting doesn't just make you doubt specific memories, I explained. It makes you doubt your entire perception of reality. It makes you question your judgment, your instincts, your understanding of the world. It's a form of psychological abuse that can take years to recover from. I talked about my own healing journey. The therapy, the self-work, the slow process of learning to trust myself again. Even now, years later, I sometimes catch myself doubting my own perceptions, I admitted. I'll have a conversation with someone and afterward think, did that really happen the way I remember? Am I being too sensitive? That's the lasting impact of gaslighting. It creates a chronic self-doubt that takes years to overcome. But I also talked about the power of evidence and validation. Having that recording changed everything for me, I said. It was concrete proof that my memories were accurate, that I wasn't crazy, that my mother had lied. And that validation was crucial to my healing. It allowed me to stop doubting myself and start trusting my own perceptions again. After the speech, a woman approached me. She was in her 60s, well-dressed, with kind eyes. "Thank you for your talk," she said. "I'm a therapist, and I've worked with many clients who've been gaslit. But I have to confess something. I was also a gaslighting mother." I was surprised but stayed quiet, letting her continue. "I didn't realize it at the time," she said, tears in her eyes. "I thought I was just correcting my daughter's memories, helping her see things more accurately. But I was rewriting history to make myself look better, to avoid taking responsibility for my mistakes. I was gaslighting her." She took a shaky breath. She confronted me about it 5 years ago. She had kept a journal documenting everything. And when she read it to me, I couldn't deny it anymore. I had to face what I'd done. "What happened?" I asked gently. "I apologized," she said. "Really apologized, without excuses or justifications. I went to therapy to understand why I'd done it. I worked on myself. And slowly, over years, my daughter and I rebuilt our relationship. It's not perfect, but it's honest now. And that's because she had the courage to confront me with evidence, and I had the humility to accept the truth." She looked at me intently. "Not all stories end with permanent estrangement. Some of us do the work. Some of us change. I just wanted you to know that." I hugged her, moved by her honesty and growth. "Thank you for telling me that," I said. "And thank you for doing the work. Your daughter is lucky." That conversation stayed with me. It reminded me that while my mother had never taken responsibility or changed, some people did. Some people, when confronted with evidence of their behavior, chose growth over denial. I wished my mother had been one of those people. But she wasn't. And I'd made peace with that. As the years passed, my relationship with the Yellowstone recording evolved. At first, it had been my secret weapon, my proof, my validation. Then it became a public symbol, played on podcasts and news segments, discussed in therapy sessions and psychology classes. But eventually, it became something else, a reminder of how far I'd come. I didn't need to listen to it anymore to know I was right. I didn't need it to validate my memories. I'd done enough healing, enough therapy, enough self-work that I trusted myself now. The recording had served its purpose. It had exposed the truth. It had validated my memories. It had set me free. But I didn't need it anymore. I was free now, with or without it. On the 10th anniversary of publishing my book, I did a final interview about the recording and my story. "Do you ever regret exposing your mother so publicly?" the interviewer asked. It was a question I'd been asked 100 times, but I answered it honestly every time. "No," I said. "I don't regret it. She made choices that hurt me, and then she lied about those choices for years. I'm just telling the truth. If the truth makes her look bad, that's a consequence of her actions, not mine." "Have you had any contact with her in the past 10 years? "No," I said. "She's reached out a few times through other family members, but I've maintained my boundaries. I don't owe her a relationship. I don't owe her forgiveness. I owe myself peace and healing." "What would you say to other people who are being gaslit by family members?" the interviewer asked. I thought carefully before answering. I'd say, trust yourself. Your memories are real. Your perceptions are valid. If someone is constantly telling you that you're remembering things wrong, that you're being too sensitive, that you're crazy, that's gaslighting. And you don't have to accept it. I paused. Document everything if you can. Keep a journal, save messages, record conversations if it's legal. Not because you're planning to use it against someone, but because when you're being gaslit, you need something concrete to hold on to. You need proof that you're not crazy. And if you do have evidence like I did, don't be afraid to use it. Don't protect people who are hurting you. Don't keep their secrets. Tell the truth. Expose the lies. Set yourself free. The interview ended, and I felt a sense of closure. I'd told my story so many times now, in so many formats, that it felt complete. I'd said everything I needed to say. The recording had done its job. It had exposed the truth, validated my memories, helped thousands of people, and ultimately set me free. That night, I went home to my apartment in Portland, the city where I'd grown up, the city I'd left and then returned to on my own terms. I made dinner, poured a glass of wine, and sat on my balcony watching the sunset. I thought about that 12-year-old girl in Yellowstone, alone and terrified, not knowing if her mother would come back. I thought about how she'd had the instinct to keep recording, to preserve evidence, even though she didn't know why. I thought about the years of gaslighting, of doubting herself, of questioning her own memories. And I thought about the moment at Thanksgiving dinner when I'd finally pressed play, when the truth had finally been exposed, when I'd finally been validated. That moment had changed everything. It had set me on a path of healing, of helping others, of building a life based on truth and authenticity. The recording had been my weapon against lies. But more than that, it had been my proof that I could trust myself. That my memories were real. That I wasn't crazy. And that validation had been the foundation of everything I'd built since. I pulled out my phone and opened the audio file, the one I'd kept for 16 years now. I didn't play it. I didn't need to. I just looked at it, this little digital file that had changed my life. "Thank you," I whispered to my 12-year-old self. "Thank you for being smart enough to record. Thank you for being strong enough to keep the evidence. Thank you for trusting your instincts. You saved us." I closed the file and put my phone away. The sun had set completely now, and the city lights were twinkling below. I felt at peace. Truly at peace, maybe for the first time in my life. My mother had driven off and left me in Yellowstone when I was 12. She'd abandoned me, lied about it, and gaslit me for years. But I'd survived. I'd kept the evidence. I'd exposed the truth. And I'd built a life I was proud of. The recording had been my proof. But I was my own validation now. I didn't need the recording to know I was right. I didn't need anyone else to believe me. I believed myself. And that was enough. This is Jade Morrison, signing off for the last time. To everyone who's been gaslit, who's been made to doubt their own reality. You are not alone. Your truth matters. Your memories are real. Trust yourself. Document your experiences. Tell your truth. And know that healing is possible. It takes time, it takes work, it takes courage. But it's possible. I'm living proof. That 12-year-old girl in Yellowstone grew up to be a woman who helps thousands of people heal from the same abuse she experienced. She turned her trauma into purpose. She turned her pain into power. She turned her evidence into freedom. And if she can do it, so can you. Trust yourself. Tell your truth. Set yourself free. The recording was just the beginning. The real power was always inside me. And it's inside you too.